You're watching The Legal Breakdown. Glenn, I want to turn your attention toward a threat that was posted by Donald Trump that seems to be taking up a lot of attention online. Cease and desist. I, together with many attorneys and legal scholars, am watching the sanctity of the 2024 presidential election very closely because I know, better than most, the rampant cheating and skullduggery that has taken place by the Democrats in the 2020 election. It was a disgrace to our nation. Therefore, the 2024 election, where votes have just started being cast, will be under the closest professional scrutiny, and when I win, those people that cheated will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, which will include long-term prison sentences so that this depravity of justice does not happen again. And then he goes on with some more vague threats there. But what do you make of this? What is he trying to accomplish by virtue of posting something like this?
You know, I think he is continuing to try to soften the ground to fool his supporters, his followers, into thinking that when he loses the election, and he will, it will be courtesy of rampant fraud. Because, you know, first of all, I don't know that he knows what a cease and desist letter is. A cease and desist letter in the practice of law, Brian, is when you think your legal rights are being infringed upon or violated by another private party. You know, think copyright violations where somebody is using your music that is copyrighted to you without your permission or authority. You might send them a cease and desist letter. And that is sort of a run-up to a lawsuit. In other words, cease and desist, violating my rights, or I may have to bring a civil suit against you. So Donald Trump is saying, cease and desist the stuff that y'all haven't done yet, but I'm going to keep an eye on you. Yeah, that is not a cease and desist order. And let me read one more sentence because you didn't include this one. This gives our viewers an additional flavor of what Donald Trump said in that post. Please be aware that this legal exposure extends to lawyers, political operatives, donors, illegal voters, and corrupt election officials, is what he wrote. And he said, and I'm going to prosecute you and put you in jail with sentences that unfortunately have never been seen in the United States before. And Brian, don't you love how he always complains about how Joe Biden is running, you know, prosecutions against him, which he's not. And yet there he goes promising that he will be attorney general, judge, jury, and executioner of all of these people who haven't even committed any crimes yet. Feels a little hypocritical.
Glenn, in your opinion, do you think this foreshadows some type of legal strategy that he's going to try to take as we head into the 2024 election?
Not a legal strategy. This is a PR strategy, right? This is for the court of public opinion, which is really what Donald Trump is always doing, whether it's in his posts, in his interviews with the media, at his hate rallies that he gives occasionally. Now he doesn't seem to be all that interested in campaigning in earnest. None of this is a legal strategy. And I'll tell you, when I first read this, latest unhinged post by Donald Trump, it really gets my blood boiling, because what he's doing is planting the seeds to tell his followers when he loses, it was because of voter fraud. It was a rigged election. They stole it from me, so they stole it from you. What he's doing is looking forward to the time when he will again incite his supporters to violence. And Donald Trump has got priors, right? He has a demonstrated track record, if we look back to January 6, 2021, of doing this exact thing, lying about voter fraud and stolen elections, contrary to all of his own executive branch officials and agencies that said, hey, Mr. President, it wasn't stolen. Enough with the lies. Still, he persisted, called everybody to D.C. on January 6th, promised that it would be wild, continued to lie to them, got them angry and ginned up, and then pointed them like a loaded weapon at the U.S. Capitol and said, now go stop the certification, stop the steal. He's done it before, and the results were deadly to human beings, even if not ultimately to our democracy. He's doing it again. So what people should know, Brian, is there are folks who are forever saying, well, free speech, First Amendment, he gets to say this stuff, he gets to post this stuff. And the answer is really, no, he doesn't. Not in all circumstances, because the Supreme Court has said if you engage in speech that is intended to and likely to produce imminent violence, that's not First Amendment protected. So I sure wish our institutions of government would stand up and protect the American people, protect our free and fair elections, protect our democracy against this repeat performance where you can see Donald Trump is looking to, produce, in the Hollywood sense, January 6th, the sequel. And that is what these kind of posts, in my opinion, are designed to do.
I also think that it's extremely pernicious because he codes his anti-democratic extrajudicial message in legal language. And so he frames this as a cease and desist, as if he's got the law on his side, only to then perpetuate a message that is anything but lawful. It's the opposite. It's a message that promotes violence, that encourages violence, does the same exact thing that January 6th would have done just a few years back. And so he likes to wrap himself in the flag, so to speak, while doing something egregiously anti-democratic. He likes to wrap himself in the Constitution while doing something unconstitutional. And here he likes to wrap himself in the law while doing something that is extrajudicial.
And it's a great point because his supporters will read cease and desist in all caps, which are the first couple of words before he launches into all this nonsense. And you can already hear them saying, oh, you see, this is sort of a legal step that he's taking because he published a cease and desist order. Well, first of all, this is not appropriate for a cease and desist letter, nor is
it's not. Cease and desist don't work by just posting them on twitter.com and then in all caps and then just some rambling diatribe that precedes it.
Yeah, no, not usually admissible in a court of law. And there are things called cease and desist orders, which are issued by courts of competent jurisdiction to direct somebody to cease and desist doing something, but that is preceded by litigation where the party offers, proof that their legal rights are being infringed upon, and then the judge can order a cease and desist. So, but yeah, his cult members will look at this and say, you see, he's used the legal process as it was supposed to be used, and yet, the Dems are out there stealing another election. And what happens? Violence is likely to ensue.
All right, and let's finish off with this, Glenn. What about the prospect of the tables being turned here? And because he is broadcasting his strategy to commit anti-democratic behavior, to commit unconstitutional behavior, could a cease and desist be issued against him because he's doing the exact same thing that preceded the insurrection in 2020?
Brian, you're reading my mind because you know what? I was just thinking about how in recent days Donald Trump was saying something about, 20% of the mail-in ballots in Pennsylvania are fraudulent when the mail-in ballots were just going out and haven't been received yet. I actually think that might be fertile ground for example, Pennsylvania election officials to issue a cease and desist order or letter to him. So, turnabout is fair play. And I actually think if anybody should be on the receiving end of a cease and desist order, it's Donald Trump for what he's trying to do to lie about and undermine the public's confidence in an election that is not yet even underway.
Right. I think that's a great point. But I think it's especially important that we talk about this now in the lead up to the election, knowing full well what his strategy is going to be so that people aren't caught off guard, so that it seems stale by the time he gets there. And we've spoken for months and months and months about exactly what he's going to do, exactly what he's going to say. So then when we get to the point where he says it, it's like, okay, well, we've already seen this. We already knew he was going to do this. We're prepared in the event that he tries to do X, Y, and Z as the result of this, and we can go about our day in protecting our elections. So, of course, we will stay on top of this because, again, I think it's important to promote this stuff as much as we possibly can. So for those watching, if you want to follow along, please make sure to subscribe. The links to both of our channels are right here on this screen. I'm Brian Tyler Cohen.
And I'm Glenn Kirshner.
You're watching The Legal Breakdown.